an email from Mike Lane saying there was some Chris Cole saying there was some conversation about this, and Mike was like, "Great, how about talking to Milton about this?" And I was sitting there like,
"That's okay."
Does this ring a bell? Did you have any conversations with people about, I guess, downtown and that?
Yeah, I did.
And
Played indoor soccer on Tuesday nights. It's very fun.
It's good. I feel
But we've got some new guys in there, just very physical.
like growing up last year,
Like slamming into the boards, hitting ankles.
Good competition.
It's getting older.
Keep strong.
Shut your head.
It
Wait,
is.
why, bro?
Big dudes.
Oh, then there's a whole nother one down there I didn't see. I'm like, that might miss us. No, that other one's
It's always a nail biter, like, yeah.
Might be coming here for a long time.
But I am for it.
I
Yikes.
guess they were asking if Tom and
Oh, it just keeps going.
have any expertise.
It's all the way to Texas.
Downtown
Yeah, that's nice.
which I don't think we do, but I'll
Crazy.
find out. And then there was a question about design, street closure. Yes, signage and stuff. Is that an issue that you're trying to work on?
I think it's my
Last time I saw you, you were all locked out with your He's here.
We still talk about it, like everybody's still like fearful of it happening, but that we found out later that 5 huge firms all had it. So it's just like, I don't know.
Are we ready? Here we go. We're just getting started. Thanks, everyone. All right. Welcome all to the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority's Wednesday, April 5th meeting. Let's begin with roll call. You could be so kind.
Certainly. Micah Bartelme.
Here.
Steve Brummer. Alex Deek. Here. Milton Mahoney.
Here.
Tyler Kinley.
Here.
Jessica Letaw. Here. Jonathan Massey.
Here.
Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Mike Micklon.
Here.
Cressa Nichols. And Danielle Vaughn. We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Just moving right ahead. Approval of the board meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the board meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the board meeting agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Wonderful. Public comments. If anyone in the public would like to speak, you have 4 minutes each, and you're welcome to come up. We don't have anybody listed. If there's anybody who wishes to come up. Seeing none, move to reports from city boards and commissions. Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Honeyman. I'm here representing the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council, which works to advise the DDA and City Council about issues and opportunities that affect downtown livability. We met last night at City Hall over Zoom and hybrid video. Well, after an update of DDA activities from Interim Executive Director Maura Thompson, the CAC welcomed a panel of 4 prominent Ann Arbor builders and developers, Ron Mucha, Jim Chaconas, Bill Kinley, and Bill Milliken, who engaged with one another and the 19 other attendees for an hour on the challenges. It was a big meeting last night. The challenges, obstacles, and opportunities of residential and commercial development in Ann Arbor. Encouraging workforce housing and economic diversity in our city is a significant challenge, particularly due to the high cost of building in the core downtown area. The panel informed us that high taxes are a principal impediment to keeping costs down. During our discussion, we explored some creative financing options to help achieve workforce housing goals. One promising idea we discussed was expanding the use of TIF to lower costs for a set period of time. We invite the DDA and City Council to study ways to expand the use of TIF and other creative financing options to help address the challenges of building affordable workforce and market rate housing in Ann Arbor. We also examined the short and medium term transients of the downtown residential community, which directly influences downtown livability. These factors have a significant impact on the development of the city and require innovative solutions. The panel also noted that the real estate market is still adjusting to post-COVID realities, which has resulted in a shift in the type of housing that is desirable, as well as changes in the complexion of local versus national retail establishments. Overall, the discussion provided valuable insights into the current state of downtown development in Ann Arbor and the challenges that lie ahead.
Peter, is there a recording or minutes?
No, we don't record it. It's kind of my decision. I want people to feel comfortable saying anything. I'm usually the one that says anything.
Much appreciated.
All right, wonderful. Appreciate it. We have the executive director report.
I have a few updates I want to share with the board and the public. First of all, through our work with community mental health, we now have updated signage on all of the rooftops of our parking structures. We have one sign over there, that's a rooftop sign, but we've also been working with community mental health on additional posters, postcards, and magnets. These posters will be displayed in elevators where we can post them and in display cases. So we're putting them basically any place we can in our parking structures on lower levels. And we worked with community mental health in addition to their partner at CHART. And of course, we relied on them for the messaging. So really the focus of all of this is to make sure that there is awareness out there that if somebody is in crisis, there is help available 24/7 by dialing or texting 988. So we're also distributing this information to any interested businesses. So we have businesses that are reaching out and DDA is printing all of the materials. Budget update. As Mr. Tahoney well knows, we are into budget season. The DDA's budget is part of the city budget, and our budget reporting and presentation is available on the city's website. And I encourage everybody to take a look at that. It kind of highlights some of the challenges that the DDA will be facing in the upcoming years. Good news, the First and Ashley Street project was recently awarded the Honorable Conceptor Award, which I'm holding right here, by the Michigan chapter of the American Council of Engineering Companies. So we are really proud of being a recipient of this award. This project has won other awards, and we are also really grateful for Amber and all of her leadership on these projects downtown. So it's really nice. And then finally, and some of you board members heard this in executive committee, but the DDA team yesterday, we did our first in-person DEI training with the city's new Director of Organizational Equity. And it was fantastic. We did a very basic course. We did acronyms in DEI AJ plus work. It was super helpful for all of us. And we talked with Laura about potentially bringing a session to the board. And we as a staff team are going to start doing monthly training sessions with Laura. So that's all I have. Take my award and go.
And Laura, can you send out an email to the board with the link to that YouTube presentation, the budget presentation?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Moving ahead to DDA members' communications. Are there any members of the DDA that would like to make
Just three things to mention here. One, I'm still going through the process of finding the city's next chief of police. I expect that to take me probably July to get that finished. It is a national search, and we're working with Baker Tilly, the search firm, helping us with it. I will be presenting the city budget to the city council on April the 17th, and they will be voting on it on May the 15th. And then finally, some of you know I've been spending a lot of time helping to lead the effort to get the city ready for the bicentennial of 2024. So we will be doing 12-month-long celebration of the city's 200th birthday. Doing a number of radio things lately, but I've got another letter to the community going out tomorrow to get ready for it, talking to a lot of them downtown stakeholders about downtown hall as well, so more to come on that. That's it.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
Any other communications from board members? Seeing none, move ahead to the approval of the March minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the March minutes?
So moved.
Second. Wonderful, thank you. All those in favor of?
Usually just ask, invite discussion.
Oh, discussion. Is there any discussion?
No, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. All those in favor of approving the March minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. All right, subcommittee reports. The operations committee.
Yes, so hello everyone. At the back of the packet, after the minutes, you will find a memo from JADA discussing a topic that we've come to you about before, which is fencing for fall deterrence and fall prevention and suicide deterrence in our parking structures. And this memo picks up that conversation with a little bit of a review of some of the past actions that the DDA has taken since 2017. And some of the recent revisiting of remaining opportunities to increase and improve the level of fall prevention and suicide deterrence on our rooftops and also on some of the lower levels that remain unenclosed. And the operations committee considered this and has worked with JADA and with folks from Fishback and others to evaluate and to chart a course forward. And we bring to you a resolution seeking your support to empower the DDA to move forward with the remaining work to enclose, to increase the level of protection. So so we move the adoption of this resolution, which I'll be happy to talk about in a minute, if there's a second.
Second.
So I'll kick off the discussion by just saying, recapping the fact that in October 2017, the board approved a project budget of $400,000 to be used for fall prevention and suicide deterrence in the parking structures. This funding allowed us to install chain link fencing on the rooftops of 6 parking structures, as well as some levels below, starting from the top and moving down. Additional fencing and cable barriers were installed in cycles in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, but we still do not have fully enclosed openings in our structures, things like 3rd level above ground and 2nd level. And so we propose to complete the work by continuing to add fencing and cable barriers at levels below the rooftops, work to be overseen by Fishback. And we issued an RFP to which one company responded for a contractor to do the work. DDA staff evaluated the proposal from Future Fence, determined that it responded to the criteria of the RFP and had a projected cost of $722,770.29. DDA engineers followed up with Future Fence to review the response, and after discussion arrived at a cost of $713,511.93, with a contingency amount of $71,351. And there's budget capacity in fiscal years 2023 and 2024 to complete this work, and so the operations committee recommends DDA board approval. And you'll find the resolution on the very last page of the packet.
I've got a couple questions.
Yeah.
Jada, you mind coming up? Just regarding the scope of this particular work, reading this, understand we're at 80% coverage currently. This scope is to address the 20% of uncovered areas above the ground floor.
So depending on which structure you're in, it's basically 3 and up. So there would be the ground floor, 1 open level, and then anything above that would be fenced in.
Okay.
And because the design and the geography of certain structures, some places it's level 2, some places it's level 3. But for the most part, it would be, obviously the ground floor open, one level open, and then fencing from there on up, including the rooftops.
Okay, so that would be, this would get us to 100% of, call it 20 feet and up. Okay. And does this scope address any other upgrades to the rooftop fencing that's currently in place, or replace, add to, or anything like that, or this is just for currently uncovered openings?
This is for currently uncovered openings.
Okay.
We worked in January, we spent about $25,000 to make some repairs and some additions at the rooftop level. And then at the operations committee meeting, we talked with the engineers about next steps for re-examining what's possible at the rooftops.
There's a potential future phase in which we would replace all or some of the rooftop fencing with more durable, long-lived, more substantial, and better designed for the specific sites fencing that meets those higher criteria. But we are not moving that. We're not proposing to move that forward.
Okay. So there's been discussion and some identified need for that in the future.
Yeah.
At the rooftop.
Yeah, and some of it is about more effective fencing installation, especially for anomalous conditions that are hard to enclose properly, things other than a straight run. And some of it has been about the deterioration over time of some of the materials in the pretty inexpensive chain link, and some of it is about the dimensions of the chain link. Some of it's about materials choice, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Is there other discussion of the motion, of the resolution?
It was a good, robust discussion. We had to go through a lot of different options.
With public input?
Yeah.
Do I?
I can do it.
No, you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to move the resolution to approve a contract for fencing and barrier cable installation at parking structures. Do I have a second?
We've already done
We
that.
just need to vote.
We just need to vote.
We're at the voting.
Good. All those in favor of the resolution to approve a contract for fencing and barrier cable installation at parking structures, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes.
The remaining part of my report is brief. It is just 2 updates. Curb management study underway with Walker Consultants, which provided an update to the committee on the work done to date, which includes a curb inventory, a pilot that's underway now on South Forest, and they shared with us some of the next steps, which include analyzing the data gathered from the pilot, developing curb typologies, doing some pricing analysis, and developing a curbside toolkit for us to use going forward, with the aim of delivering the final plan to DDA staff to then be shared with the operations committee and ultimately with the board. The second thing underway is the parking system rate study, which is just in the early stages.
On curb management, and I don't know if this is a question that anyone can answer, but I think I understand kind of the analysis of like the infrastructure, the assets that we have. Is there any kind of survey component to that work? Are we talking to businesses, to downtown drivers, anything like that? Or is that not a part of this part of the work?
Jada, can I ask you to?
So the curb management study, for the most part, is really focused on operations and access at the curb. So the way we see it is when the DDA is looking at a street or a neighborhood, that outreach work is going to happen through a specific project. Then if it's determined that this block, needs some amount of loading, then that's when what we've learned from the curb management study will kick in. We are talking to businesses a little bit later, especially when it comes to what they're seeing at the curb, what possible technologies could be implemented. But a lot of that kind of heavy lifting and understanding how a neighborhood works would be done by Amber and Maura as part of a project.
Yeah, thank you.
The last thing I have to share is just that the next Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 26th, here at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving ahead to Capital Improvement Committee.
Thanks, Tyler. Just a quick project update and then a presentation from Amber. The committee did not meet in March. And so we have a project update on State Street though. Between North University and Liberty, the contractor is grading and preparing for concrete work next week. Between Liberty and Washington, the underground work is shifting to water main installation. And overall, the contractor has been meeting their schedule, and we should have more information next week to understand if the weather this week is impacting scheduling at all. And then Amber, I'll turn it over to you for our presentation.
Kelly and I are going to switch places here. I don't know if it'd be more comfortable for the two of you to switch. We did put chairs in the back of the room. You don't have to stay there as well.
Sit to the back of class.
Just about right here.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through information from two sources, and this information was shared with your board packet and now is available on our website.
Just get out of your way.
The first source is the Downtown Market Scan. This report is created by Forward Planning. They're a consultant that we've worked with since about 2014 to create this report for us. We did pause that work during the pandemic. We wanted to allow the data to catch up with the trends, but we have an update for you today. And then the second source of information is our COVID impact and recovery report. This was created by DDA staff, primarily Shelby and Luke, to highlight the pandemic-related trends specifically and DDA's efforts. And I do want to note that these are just a snapshot in time. These are emerging trends, and we'll continue to try to track and monitor them. All right, prior to the pandemic, downtown was active and thriving most hours of the day. The population growth was fairly strong downtown in the 10 years leading up to the pandemic. So you can see from that lower chart on your screen that the downtown population was increasing at a faster rate than the city and the surrounding area, but not as quickly as some other similar downtowns. Overall, the number of jobs downtown stayed pretty stable, but we were seeing a shift in the type of jobs. So from 2010 to 2019, we saw a 44% increase in information and tech jobs. And overall, right before the pandemic, over 13,000 jobs downtown. So many more people working downtown than living downtown. And I think it's also important to note that these trends were not positive for all people. So most of the new residents coming downtown were in the higher income categories. So in order for affordable housing to take place downtown, public funding was needed and still is needed to support that use downtown. At the start of the pandemic, we saw downtown activity decrease pretty dramatically. And this, started with the governor's declaration of state of emergency in March 2020, and then closures and restrictions came in pretty quick succession. And to understand the pandemic impact on our recovery, it helps to understand some key downtown factors, and this relates back to those pre-pandemic trends. So compared to similar downtowns, downtown Ann Arbor has a pretty high density of primary workers, but the lowest residential density when compared to some other similar downtowns.
What do you mean by, what does primary mean in that?
Some people who work downtown have more than one job. So primary job is the job that they work like the most hours. So it helps us track number of workers.
Thanks.
So our residential population alone cannot support our existing amount of retail and restaurant space. We've historically relied on those 13,000 office workers and the visitors coming downtown to keep downtown active. And to some degree, we'll always have office downtown. With U of M as an anchor, we'll also always be a regional destination. But one recommendation that you'll see in both of the reports is that more downtown residents will help to improve resilience and just help to balance the uses downtown. As expected, downtown visits declined dramatically at the start of the pandemic. And you can see from the chart in the upper part of the screen, that's showing visits to workplace and visits to retail. Those increased 60 to 70% almost immediately in March of 2020. And then in the first year of the pandemic overall, about 53% reduction in visits to those places. Parking and transit use decreased similarly. And for the streets where we have data, walking remained relatively stable and bike ridership grew. So the people who lived close enough to walk and bike were helping to keep downtown active in those early phases. During this time of reduced activity and limits on indoor operations, the DDA was working with partners in the city and in the business community to create space for business operations and encourage activity downtown. All right, so starting with the first round of vaccines, we started to move into pandemic recovery. And for downtown, the pace of that recovery really started picking up with the return of students and the rescinding of the remaining emergency orders. So as we move into recovery, in addition to residents helping to activate downtown, we see the return of U of M activities and visitors. At the start of the pandemic, the businesses that were agile and able to pivot were able to survive and even thrive. And today we're seeing restaurants with focused hours and focused offerings, and that is working for them. U of M students have returned in record numbers. Tourism, which initially took a pretty significant hit in 2020, hotel occupancy was only about 37%. That seems to be rebounding as well. What we're hearing is hotel occupancy in 2022 nearly returned to pre-pandemic levels. So overall, things are moving in a positive direction. Office workers still have been slow to return to downtown. And the data is indicating that this may be prolonged. So what we're seeing is that downtown has a high share of primary workers in the office-based industries. And the charts on the right side of the screen show some national data. The top one there, the line that for most of the chart is lower and is that lighter green, that is tracking office employment. So during the pandemic, office employment actually increased. At that same time, the other trend line, which is tracking office occupancy, at the same time that employment was growing, occupancy was continuing to trend down. And then the lower chart, this is also national data, is showing the anticipated shift from pre-pandemic. That 60% there is the amount of employees that were fully on site, and shifted to what's anticipated based on a Gallup poll to majority being hybrid.
And can you explain what the green office employment versus office, I don't understand the difference.
So office employment versus office space. And office employment are the number of people employed in those industries, and then office space is the amount of space they're occupying. And what we're starting to see, well, continuing to see, because of the shift to work from home and hybrid, is that even as more people are working in those industries, the demand for office space is going down. And we're seeing this in downtown Ann Arbor as well. So the vacancy rate increased from a little below 6% in 2019 to 15 to 32%, depending on the source, in October of 2022. And again, mobility trends are aligning with these recovery trends. So the Google mobility data we're showing in the top part of the screen, the retail and recreation visits. You can see that's the top line. That is moving back towards that pre-pandemic baseline. So that's only 12% below pre-pandemic levels. The other line, that blue line, which is the line that sits below, those are visits to workplace. So that's still trending fairly low at about 42% below pre-pandemic levels. And our parking data is following a similar, or showing a similar pattern. So on your screen is data from the Maynard Garage from February 2020, right before the pandemic, to February 2023. The orange line is the February 2020, so that line that is higher during the daytime. So we're seeing a greater gap in the daytime use from today to pre-pandemic, and in the evening, we're seeing that gap start to close and actually even some more evening activity. Now, bike ridership continues to increase throughout all of this, so we think that we're seeing some mode shift or some people coming downtown simply to recreate. All right, overall, we're seeing positive trends emerge from the pandemic, and we want to talk about where we go from here. And even as we were recovering from the pandemic, we knew that we'd be facing other shocks and stressors, and the pandemic highlighted the crucial importance of resilience. So those pandemic effects remain. We have compounding economic factors today with labor shortages and inflation. And all the while, we've still been facing a climate emergency, with climate events becoming more extreme and more frequent, housing shortage, and aging infrastructure, and rising costs. Forward Planning conducted a case study of other university towns, and based on that, they provided these key findings for all university downtowns, just kind of some general findings. And that is support more residential, diversify downtown activities and purpose, increase walkability, connectivity, and public spaces, enable housing diversity and affordability, build social and cultural equity into the plan, and nourish the economy through partnership. For downtown Ann Arbor in particular, we're starting from a strong place, and forward planning reinforced that for us. Our strengths include our adaptable, resilient businesses, and we saw this very clearly through the pandemic. We also have continued residential and tourism demands, and a strong foundation as well. We've collectively made good infrastructure investments, and we have engaging public spaces. So this gives us the opportunity to build on those strengths. And expanding the purpose of downtowns and diversifying the daytime economy go hand in hand. Some ways we can achieve that is ensuring that we're more than just an office center, supporting recreation, diversifying our jobs, and increasing the residential population. In order to make sure that some of those things can happen, we need to re-examine codes and policy, and actually Shelby and I will be at the Planning Commission on the 11th of this month to talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, continue supporting a high quality of life, investing in affordable housing, infrastructure, and access. And it's important to keep in mind that these opportunities are not for the DDA to solve alone. We have really strong partners on the public sector side as well as the business side. And we have the opportunity to work together to make downtown more resilient. Okay, this is our last slide here. So far, the best practices and case studies that we're hearing from forward planning and others are helping to reinforce what we've committed to, focusing on resilient, adaptable infrastructure, things like improving safety, improving our outdoor space, enhancing resiliency, continuing to support programs like the Go Pass, and also engaging equitable public spaces. This year we'll be working toward piloting with the City of Ann Arbor, piloting public restroom options downtown, creating a public art program, and implementing a platform dining program. And then of course our affordable housing investments. So that is a quick snapshot of those two reports that you received. We encourage you to look at them in more detail. And next month, we'll follow up this information with a presentation on Michigan DDAs, in particular Grand Rapids and Traverse City, just to give you a sense of how DDAs are having an impact in this space.
And for this, so these are things that we're actively pursuing right now.
This
These are
is
priorities
what
that we've identified.
Yes, this is what we have committed to. And I think in some ways it was very helpful for us collectively to be making project priority decisions during the pandemic, because we had that in mind, the importance of building resiliency downtown when we were making these commitments. I can help answer questions, or Shelby and Laura, if anybody has any.
Thank you.
Amber, and those downtown resident figures, those are exclusive of students, correct?
Those figures are directly from the census.
From the census, so they would include,
I think it depends on the individual's primary residence.
okay.
And the comparison is helpful because we're also comparing it to other university downtowns. So you can imagine that their student residential population would be captured similarly in the census, so having that comparison is helpful.
I guess I have a question about the
Sure.
residential numbers as well. So I appreciate what you said about the fact that we're being compared to benchmark cities and that our residential density is lower than our peers. I'm curious where we stand with respect to residential development compared to our peers. And I'm wondering, is that information in the sources that you looked at, is there any way to look at that as well? Understanding that Forward's recommendation to all cities was more residential development, I'm still curious where we stand.
Do you mean the pace of
Pace of
residential
construction,
development?
yeah.
So, what they looked at was really the pace of residential growth. And in the past, we have looked at pace of development, but since communities capture that so differently, it's not as helpful for comparison.
Understood.
And that's why this year we went back to just looking at population.
Okay.
Do we have maybe less of a pace of development, but a percentage of office versus retail versus residential kind of comparison to other downtowns? I know we say we're heavily loaded office. Do we have anything that might say, hey, we're 60% office, a lot of these other downtowns are whatever?
I do think, I'm trying to picture the detailed reports in my head, I do think that there are several charts in those reports that break out the types of businesses by the
Yeah.
different cities.
More like use type load, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah,
Well, just wondering. Thanks.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
All right, the next CIC meeting is April 19th at 11 a.m.
Thank you. All right, we head to finance.
The Finance Committee did not meet last month. We are meeting Thursday, April 27th at 9 a.m. I do want to encourage anybody who's able to come. We talked a little in executive committee. All of you who were here for the last board meeting when Sarah shared her presentation, Maura will be sending out a link to the budget presentation to the city. There's some, there's a lot coming. We have some fund balance stuff going on, coming up in a few years. We got some limited revenue opportunities. So there's a lot of work to be done, both at committee and a wider board level. I think we're going to start to give you some more information about where we stand and what some of the options may be going forward. So a lot of challenges to address. I invite anybody to come lend their expertise and thoughts to the process, but you'll be hearing a lot more about this in regular board meetings as well, as we address kind of the results of COVID and et cetera have had on our organization and our finances. So please join us, but you'll be hearing about all of this during your regular board meetings as well.
We'd mentioned in executive committee potentially having a memo about kind of the budget considerations that are coming and some of the decisions that were going to be made. I don't know about the timing, but I'm wondering if the possibility of sending out a memo ahead of the meeting so that people kind of understand the scope of what we're discussing. It's a question that doesn't necessarily have to be answered.
Possible, Sarah? Or is that something we probably work on at the next committee to get a communication out?
Possibly. I mean, there'll be the finance committee packet.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's soon enough or if you're looking for something before that. Are you?
I mean,
I think it's
I
gotta be
understand what you're
included.
saying, that there's some unusual urgency in this conversation,
Yeah.
and I just wonder if the committee packet is sufficient in communicating that urgency.
I'm not sure where, the communication will come, but we did talk about putting together a very specific, digestible, kind of historical, here's where we stand, here's what's coming, here's some potential ways to address it. Obviously, these issues are going to be discussed at a board level. There's limited work we can do in committee other than kind of bring some awareness and organized information to all of you. But I guess what I'm saying is you're going to be getting some information. It's important to look at it and understand it because we have some work to do on the finance end. And if you'd like to understand it more in depth, we'll be discussing a lot of these things at committee. So information forthcoming.
Thank you.
And I can talk a little bit more about that when we get to the executive committee.
Great.
And the next meeting is Thursday.
Yep, so that, April 27th, 9 a.m., we'll be meeting, and please come if you can.
Great, thank you. The Affordable Housing and Economic Development Committee I chair. Give brief partner updates. The Ann Arbor District Library had the EPIC MRA conduct a survey of its community base. This is usually conducted every 2 years, but this past round was delayed due to the pandemic. They went into detail about the results, but some of the sort of outstanding ones were that there's a strong support for renovating the current main library versus replacing / building new. And there was support for partnering with the developer for a mixed-use development with the library on the main levels and a mix of housing on the upper levels. So just sort of an interesting result from that survey that was just conducted. From the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, the 121 Catherine project is scheduled to go to the Planning Commission next week. 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago when it passed.
Yeah, exactly, it passed. And so then the other one was that the 350 South 5th project is in the schematic design phase. From City Council, Councilmember Cornell provided an overview of the Economic Development Corporation, of which she is a member. Sort of discussed what she's working on there. And then from the DDA, our Executive Director, Maura Thompson, provided an update on our projects. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 12th at 9 a.m. It's a DDA only. No partners will be present, but you're all invited to that as well. Moving ahead to Executive Committee, as noted, I'll address sort of some of the briefs, but it was a good meeting. We discussed a few things. One, you should all expect you all being the board should expect to hear from me directly, just to chat a bit and get an idea as we prep for next year and committee assignments, specifically chairing committees and time commitments and executive committee placement as well. We'll be working on that in April. Regarding the executive director search, basically we talked about getting the process started, and the process starting consisting of us deciding how that process is going to run. And so we talked about sort of laying out what needs to happen, the requirements, as well as sending out essentially a debrief or a postmortem of how the process went previously to give new board members and current sort of either an education or a refresher on here's how the process went, just so people have an understanding of that's how it looked, some of the strengths, some of the opportunities from that, just so you have that in your memory as we go forward into our next process. We also talked about the DDI training that the staff just went through and the opportunities there for that to be something that the board participates in, which I fully supported. I'll talk to a little bit more in this coming month about seeing when we can schedule something like that. But it would be a wonderful opportunity for our board to engage, and especially as we've got some new members, it would be a good, really first step for all of us. Do expect an email from me that does lay out a lot of that history about the hiring process that we went through, and also another memo separately that I do expect to go out before the Finance Committee that gives an idea and an overview of here are sort of here's the status of where we're at with a lot of the financials and the coming year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. What things are on our horizon that really need to be at the forefront of our minds in this year, and as we figure out chairs and committees. So it was a good meeting. Our next executive committee will be, of course, Wednesday, May 3rd, for the next general meeting at 11:30. Yeah, that gives you a little overview there. New business. Is there any new business from the board?
Any questions on
Oh, yeah. Are there any questions? Sorry about the executive committee. I should have just asked.
Was that a summary of the one that happened today, or was
Yes.
it, okay, got it, not the March? All right, great.
So, yeah, kind of more information coming on
Yeah.
several big initiatives and things, including the executive director search.
Great.
And kind of addressing our financial situation post-COVID, looking into these years ahead.
Sounds good.
Yeah, next Wednesday, May 3rd, 11:30. New business? Any new business from the board? No, seeing none. Public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that would wish to speak? I think we have 4 minutes each. All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Second. All right, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.